What is going on, everybody? An exciting week 3 of NFL action is in the books, and that means we're here with my week 4 NFL power rankings. We're going to get right into it. If you could do me a favor and hit that like button, it really does help me out. It takes just a second, free and easy way to support the channel. And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss my full weekly power rankings every week and all my other NFL content. But let's get into it. And this week, the Chicago Bears are going to be sitting at the bottom in their own tier. What an absolute dumpster fire this has become. It is every single phase broken for this team. This week, I want to call out the defense and the front office that, as I said, complete dumpster fire. This front office's decision to quote-unquote address what was the worst defensive line in football last year with Yannick Ngakoue and a bunch of replacement-level dudes on much bigger contracts than they should be paid, it ain't working. Matt Eberflus, where's the growth? Where's the development from this defense like you showed in Indianapolis with a, I'm not going to say equally untalented defense, but did some stuff with lesser talent in Indianapolis that he's not doing here in Chicago. And then you look at the offensive side of the ball, and they aren't doing the defense any favors. Justin Fields still can't read a defense, holds onto the ball way too long. Everything on that side of the ball with him and the play calling, it's been all across the board as bad as it possibly could have been. I did try to warn you, Bears fans, that if Fields doesn't take a step up, this could be a Caleb Williams team. And man, this team is looking like, with our number 31 team here, the Carolina Panthers, they might be bringing in Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr. So this could turn around quicker than you think, Bears fans, but man, how can you not just laugh at the Chicago Bears right now? Not to mention all of the off-field drama last week with Justin Fields calling out the coaching staff and Alan Williams and that whole situation. Oh my goodness. Anyway, the Carolina Panthers at number 31. Man, I struggled with this one. I originally had them in the bottom tier, but then I was like, they'd still be a 4 or 5 point favorite over that Bears team right now, so I can't quite go that low on Carolina. They've also been much more competitive in their games than the Bears. Like, I really just think the Bears are right now in a complete tier of their own in terms of incompetency, but the Panthers, that's not saying much for them to rank 31st. The offense was better this week against a squishy Seahawks defense, but they still have offensive line protection issues. And if this defense now, without Shaq Thompson, without J.C. Horn, is going to be getting lit up like that, this team really doesn't stand much of a chance. They got to take on the Vikings this week. Bryce Young not playing at the moment. That might even be for the best, but they've got a long way to go. I was off on how ready this team was going to be to compete right away. Though, granted, I do have to remind myself, I did say in my Panthers deep dive, be wary of a slow start and them to build things as the season goes on, but man, they have a lot to build as the season goes on. Then the Broncos at number 30. I mean, they were a laughingstock this week. You give up 70 points. The backups come out, and you're still getting gashed for 70-yard runs. Oh my God! Like, I projected some regression for this Broncos defense. I definitely didn't project them to go and be one of the worst defenses in the entire NFL. I mean, that's really what's broken in Denver right now. It's hard to even evaluate the offense when they're getting just boat raced like that. But right now, the early returns on going to get Sean Payton are an overwhelming thumbs down. Then the Houston Texans. I see you, Houston, looking much better this week. I thought the defense really shaped up. Will Anderson felt like he was everywhere for the Texans. And the other first-round pick, C.J. Stroud, really starting to look comfortable. I mean, he has looked comfortable as a starter in the NFL. He looks really good. He's throwing with anticipation. He's getting through his reads. He's even navigating pressure pretty well, dealing with some injuries on the offensive line. Stroud definitely looks like the right pick for Houston at this point in time. I love some of the play calling stuff they're doing with PFF Bobby Slowick in there, getting the young Tank Dell going. Things definitely trending up for the Houston Texans, as they are for the Arizona Cardinals. Wow. I mean, they've been competitive in losses in an impressive way in the first 2 weeks, And now they come out and blow out the Dallas Cowboys, who some were calling for to be ranked number 1 last week. I mean, we were really all wrong about Jonathan Gannon. Like, if you defended Jonathan Gannon and said he'd be a great coach, props to you. But myself and really the whole echo chamber at large was not sold on this hiring. But that locker room is sold. They are playing extremely hard. They're getting surprise performances on the defensive side of the ball. And a huge shout out to Drew Petzing, the offensive coordinator for Arizona. I think is doing a ton of really fun, creative stuff. I love the way they're using Rondale Moore, getting him involved out of the backfield and design touches in a way that Cliff Kingsbury didn't really think of. So I'm just excited to see what this team might look like if Kyler Murray's going to be coming back in a couple weeks. I mean, this team could be way better than we thought. And at the end of the day, this is just the beginning, right? They have all those picks and a roster that is very much in transition, if not fully rebuilding. Then the Las Vegas Raiders at number 27, the same ranking they had last week. Not much to really say here, just don't trust that defense. And offensively, Jimmy Garoppolo cannot come from behind. Really needs a needs a certain game script and the structure to keep things in the short to intermediate and pick up first downs with his legs. The second he's got to push the ball downfield, feels like the decision making just goes out the window. So they've got a lot of issues. Devontae Adams no longer happy in Las Vegas. Look, you made your own bed, Devontae. You chose to go to the Raiders. I don't know what to tell you, but ultimately just not a very good football team. Then the New York Giants going to drop down a spot after getting just slaughtered by the San Francisco 49ers on Thursday night. That game really played out the way I anticipated with all of those injuries for the Giants as well. This team definitely facing some tough realities in terms of how far this roster still has to go after a really impressive season last year. I still think they can bounce back and climb as the season moves forward, but where this team is at right now, they just have a lot of work to do. And then the Washington Commanders at number 25, this was why I was a little more hesitant on, jumping the gun on Sam Howell. We now have a little bit more information about what that Denver defense is that he lit up last week. And really just self-combusted this week. 5 turnovers for the Commanders offense, and you just can't win football games like that. Even when the defense is playing well and containing Josh Allen early in this game, you can't give Josh Allen that many opportunities with short fields because of turnovers. So I'm not writing off Sam Howell or anything like that, but definitely some pretty major red flags there this week. Now, before we get to my NFL middle class tier, I got to tell you guys about my friends at Underdog Fantasy. You've all seen the screenshots by now of people sharing their pick'em slips where you can select anything from 2 to 5 player stats, anything from fantasy points to rushing yards to interceptions to total tackles, you name it. If you've got a crappy Sunday night football game, say this upcoming weekend, Jets-Chiefs, but you want to increase how interested you are in it, well, you can get 20 times your money if you win your Underdog slips. You can throw $2 with a chance to pay for your dinner and get $40 back with your Underdog slips. And right now, if you sign up using promo code TFG, not only will you support my channel in a big way, but they'll match up to $100 on your first deposit. That is easily a season's worth of pick'em slips right there. So I love Underdog. Everyone I've recommended Underdog to loves it, and I know you guys will too. So head over to Underdog Fantasy. You can take out your phone, load up the app right now as well, and use promo code TFG when you sign up for $100 back and supporting my channel. But let's talk about the NFL middle class, and this is going to start with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the 24 spot, dropping down just 1 this week. They got outmatched against the Eagles in a game that it kind of didn't set up well for them, where they fall behind early as they were supposed to against a better Eagles team. And then the rain comes in, and Baker in the rain already deals with accuracy issues. It was not a successful trip to the office for the Bucs last night on Monday Night Football. So we kind of know what the questions are on this team, and they remain. Then the New York Jets at 23. Look, they fought against the New England Patriots so much that they had a chance with a Hail Mary at the end. The ball gets deflected, just falls short. But, they got offensive issues, not just Zach Wilson, which is the heart of the issue, but the offensive line. They're shuffling guys around. They just can't figure things out. Nathaniel Hackett, we saw what he did in Denver last year. Now in charge of this offense, this thing is spiraling out of control, and they have to play the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football. What a waste of this defense. Then the Tennessee Titans, they definitely ran into a buzzsaw of a matchup this week. I'm not going to lie. That offensive line for Tennessee is their biggest issue right now. And you run into that Browns defensive line in Cleveland, and it was as bad as you could have imagined. Now, this defense kept them around, and I still think this Titans team is going to scratch and claw their way to a 7 or 8 win season. But their deficiencies are going to make it really difficult for them to compete for a playoff spot this year. Then the LA Rams, they're going to climb up a spot just because I don't think they looked quite as bad as the Titans or Jets this week. They did compete against the Bengals, but the Rams themselves, I feel worse about them this week than I did last week because those offensive line woes really showing up. We'll see how bad some of these injuries are for them, but you can't have Stafford under fire like that, or this thing is going to go in the direction that we kind of predicted coming in, where, they might start better, but if you lose Stafford, the wheels fall off of this entire team, and he took some hits there Monday night where I was like, oh, please get up, Matt, please get up. I don't know how long they can survive that. Then we got the Colts at number 20. This is some positive news here for Indianapolis. They look good. Shane Steichen, we knew it was a good hire, a well-qualified hire, a guy that has done some really good work in the last few years with the Chargers and, of course, with the Eagles last year. But they've got this Colts team completely under wraps. Love the play calling on the offensive side of the ball, even getting creative with Gardner Minshew in there, who looks completely dialed in inside this offense. They didn't miss a beat going down to him. He looks like he should be starting for some of these teams we've talked about already. But the defense, too. They really look comfortable in Gus Bradley's defense at this point. I love retaining him and letting him just do his thing on that side of the ball. The Samson Ebukam signing has shades of the Trey Hendrickson signing for the Bengals, where we saw it and was like, okay, good signing, whatever. And then he just is like a superstar for them. I'm really impressed with what Samson Ebukam has done to ignite that defensive line and bring some fire to that group that seems like it's kind of lacked a little bit of that intensity. Just love what they're doing in Indianapolis. They're climbing up, and if they keep playing well, I'm not ruling them out for competing for this division, because the Jags got to get their act together in a way that the Colts have theirs together. Then we've got the New Orleans Saints. We'll see what happens with Derek Carr. But is it even that big of a drop-off going down to Jameis? I don't know, especially once he can get a full week of practice and they kind of can game plan with him. I almost don't hate the idea of Jameis and just going full on send it with these receivers, because this team has some issues. This offensive line is a big part of what got Derek Carr hurt. They've got issues right now. Even Ryan Ramczyk was getting worked last week. That's not what you want to see. Cesar Ruiz left this game early. Trevor Penning, an issue at left tackle. But defensively as well, this defensive line looked great in the first 2 weeks. They ran into a banged up Packers offensive line, down 3 starters, and they couldn't touch Jordan Love. That's a pretty big issue. You're just going to put too much pressure on your secondary, which is incredible. I love what Alante Taylor and Lattimore and Tyrann Mathieu are doing this year. But yeah, this is a team like some of these squads we've talked about in this tier that just have some issues that show up in certain matchups for sure. And not to mention the lack of a run game that really hurt their ability to put Green Bay away in that game, where they had a 17-0 lead in the fourth quarter. But then we have the number 1 ranked team in the NFC South, the Atlanta Falcons, who have a Desmond Ridder problem. I don't see it. I have not seen it. I will begin to and continue to ask, would this team be better going with Taylor Heineke? This isn't like the Commanders seeing what they have in Sam Howell, where you have a guy that can make plays with a strong arm. Desmond Ridder has poor pocket presence and a noodle for an arm and accuracy issues. I just don't see the upside with him. It was a 3rd-round pick. They're, again, my number 1 ranked team in the division. This is not a lost season. At what point do they consider a quarterback change here? Because the defense is fighting, and they've got a ton of playmakers here. Now, I'm not thrilled with Arthur Smith's play calling in this game. They really abandoned the run in this game in a way that they didn't in that Green Bay game when they came back and beat Green Bay. I don't know what changed there, other than the fact that Detroit was actually stopping the run early in this game. But right now, that's their offense right now, is Bijan and play action to, Kyle Pitts and throwing jump balls to Drake London. That's not a sustainable offense in every matchup, as we saw this week. Then the Minnesota Vikings staying put at number 17. I tweeted this out and I really believe it. It's going to be funny to see what some other power rankings do with the 0-3 Vikings this week. I'm going to be looking around to see that, because there's probably a lot of power rankings that would have had the Vikings at, number 5, number 6 at certain points last year. And then this year at 0-3 are going to be like bottom 5 or 6. And it's funny because more or less, this is the same damn football team. Only last year they were 13-0 in 1-score games. This year they're 0-3. It has fallen completely back to earth. They've lost 7 fumbles in 3 games. You just can't play winning football like that. Yet they're still right there at the end of these games with a chance to win. And if TJ Hawkinson catches this ball, we're talking about, great comeback win from the Vikings, and Kirk Cousins does it again, a close game. Look how good the offense looked this week, but the ball just doesn't land their way. You also have a dropped pick in this game that goes right through a Caleb Evans' hands late in the 4th quarter that could have nearly sealed this game for Minnesota. So there wasn't a shred of me that watched Minnesota in that loss against the Chargers that made me feel worse about who they are as a football team. They just got outgunned by Justin Herbert in the end. But let's take a tier jump up to the more playoff hopeful teams. And I know some people will say, how do you not have those NFC South teams in the playoff hopefuls? Look, what division you're in is what it is, but I'm not going to rank you higher just because your division frickin' sucks. So let's get that out of the way. But this tier is going to kick off with the Pittsburgh Steelers. After an ugly week 1, definitely starting to feel again like the team we expected coming into the year. Now, Kenny Pickett to me still isn't playing great, but ran around, made some plays happen against a bad Raiders defense, got things going a little bit. Love how they're getting Calvin Austin going. I'm not trying to gas up this offense, though. I still have major Matt Canada questions. Deontay Johnson's not healthy for them. But look, this defense is what they are, and that is a terrifying force. The combination of TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, the playmakers on the back end, they're a good football team. They just are. Then the Green Bay Packers. I don't know many teams that had much of a better week than Green Bay. When it's looking doom and gloom on Sunday morning, you get the injury report on Jordan Love's home opener. No Aaron Jones, no Christian Watson, no David Bakhtiari, no Elton Jenkins, no Jair Alexander. Hell, even Zach Tom left this game against the Saints banged up. Yet you come out and Jordan Love puts this team on his back and leads a sensational comeback. And even if they lost this game, the way you see Jordan Love respond in a game where you have all those injuries, you watch this game and the amount of penalties, pre-snap motions, illegal formations, bounces of the ball with dropped picks by the defense, the amount of things that were not going in Green Bay's favor, Jordan Love very easily could have self-combusted, and it almost looked like he was going to for a second. He had a bit of an F it, I'm down by 2 touchdowns in the second half, kind of arm punt. But after that, he locked back in and led a remarkable comeback where he showed amazing pocket presence, like shades of Aaron Rodgers, just in terms of navigating pressure and an impossible guy to sack and keeping his eyes downfield while eluding pressure. I mean, that pocket presence is a rare trait to find, and he's reading the defense. He's really avoiding mistakes outside of that arm punt. And you pair those two things together, and you can get really excited about Jordan Love. Now, yeah, he might be late on a couple reads. We didn't expect him to be a perfect processor coming out, but definitely looks pretty good across the board. And he's got to clean up some of these accuracy issues. He missed a huge throw to Luke Musgrave in this game that could have been 6 early on. So I'm not trying to say Jordan Love is perfect, but for Green Bay to be 2-1, Jordan Love looks good, and they've been out basically their entire offensive roster to this point. You can definitely understand why some Packers fans might be getting pretty gassed up about this team. Then we got the New England Patriots at 14. I think they played exactly as I thought they would in this game. I think my score prediction on Patreon was 17-12, and they ended up winning 15-10 in some weird low-scoring slop fest, and that's exactly what we got. The offense is still definitely imperfect. I think things will lighten up a little bit. They've played some of the best teams in the NFL thus far, and obviously that Jets defense is still remarkable, but a huge win for them. They just had to get in the win column, and hopefully they can kind of build up some momentum. They've got a bunch of dudes out right now too, injuries in the secondary, injuries on the offensive line. Another team like Green Bay, where they've kind of survived a challenging start to the season and can maybe kind of look ahead into October football now to kind of start their season in a way that Bill Belichick has always talked about, September being an extension of the preseason. So I'm excited to see where this Patriots team goes. Definitely needed that win, though, to get this thing off on the right foot. But it's time to talk about Jacksonville. What a disappointing performance across the board. I mean, where do you even want to start? Offense, defense, special teams? It was all a shit show against the Texans. I think defensively they've got big issues. That pass rush against a Texans offensive line that is down to second and third string options. I mean, they've invested way too much in this group to have 9 pressures and 0 sacks in this game. I mean, that's a nightmare performance from a group that you just need better. There's no other way to put it, and that's underselling it. It's unacceptable. But special teams, missed field goals, letting a fullback return a touchdown on you. Like, what the hell are you doing on that side of the ball? They had a blocked kick in this game. Just a brutal special teams performance from the Jags. And then offensively, that's 2 weeks in a row now where everything has just been a little bit off. I don't know if teams are more dialed in to what Doug Peterson wants to do on early downs. I don't know if Calvin Ridley is quietly hurting this team right now. In fact, you could certainly argue he is. They're not getting those easier first down chunk plays to Christian Kirk in the way that they did last year. And Calvin Ridley is actively out there dropping balls the last 2 weeks, not getting his feet in. It's been ugly for him. He has 2 false starts in this game. After week 1, it looked amazing with Calvin Ridley. Wow, it's taken a U-turn. I'm not even really prepared to put any blame on Trevor Lawrence here. It's just, offensive line issues too. Anton Harrison got benched in this game, their first round pick. It's really been a bad 2 weeks for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Then we've got the Seattle Seahawks. They roared again offensively. I mean, again, just so many different ways to beat you. Kenneth Walker has been awesome to start the season. I've still got worries about their defense. You're going to end up getting into shootouts where you need Geno and these guys to put up 28 plus points a week, but they've shown that they can do that relatively consistently with the play calling and all of these playmakers that they have. Then the LA Chargers staying put at 11. That Chargers-Vikings game, I think anyone that's paid attention to the Chargers or Vikings over the last 3+ years, that game pretty much went exactly as you expected. Random bounces of the balls, missed field goals, you name it. Weird 4th down attempts late in the game that don't work, and then you still somehow scrap it out at the end. It was a complete random shit show that was thoroughly enjoyable, and I just don't feel any different about the Chargers. I don't. I still don't think Brandon Staley's a good coach. This defense got lit up again. Those big J.C. Jackson, Khalil Mack acquisitions last year have been complete non-factors. Literally, J.C. Jackson not in the lineup. The one positive thing here, and it's a big positive, I'm not trying to be all negative with the Chargers. Congrats, you squeaked out your first win against an average Vikings team. But Justin Herbert played his best game in a long time in this one. He was a man on a mission, but even then he tried to throw the game away with an interception late in the game that goes right through Caleb Evans' hands. So it's like, you still have to remember that. But no, Herbert, I called him out for not moving in big third down situations. He was on the move this week, scrambling, rolling out. He has a throw rolling to his left, throwing back across his body to Keenan Allen that only a small collection of quarterbacks in the NFL are capable of. They also lose Mike Williams for the season in this game. That's significant. So some good, some bad for the Chargers this week. I do wonder, though, would you have been better off that TJ Hawkinson just catches it and then you fire Brandon Staley? I don't know. I left them out of the Super Bowl hopeful tiers for a reason. I'll end it with that. The Detroit Lions are going to climb up now into the top 10 for Lions fans. Really impressed with how this whole Dan Campbell kneecap biting mentality was able to take it to an Atlanta Falcons team that basically makes you play fast, aggressive, disciplined football on the defensive side of the ball. I think we've seen the two sides of this defense. Last week against a drop-back Seahawks passing game with a ton of vertical weapons, you can really challenge this defense. But if you're more of a run-heavy, old-school football team in a lot of ways like the Falcons, Detroit will match that on that side of the ball. And defense is still my number one kind of question mark about Detroit, but I love seeing that they at least have a dimension to this team, with Jack Campbell patrolling the middle of the field this week, looking pretty good. All these different front seven pieces that they have showing up and playing. And then the offense just continues to do their thing. I think you continue to be impressed by Jared Goff and Ben Johnson and what they're able to do with really no weapons. I mean, seriously, it's Amon-Ra St. Brown and nobody else. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs, he had 80 rushing yards in this game, but, on 17 attempts, only made one defender miss, one reception in this game. I still don't think that pick was remotely close to worth it, but big W for Detroit to bounce back after a loss last week. But now we have our Super Bowl hopeful tier, and just hanging on for dear life in this tier are the Cincinnati Bengals. Definitely still attaching to a lot of benefit of the doubt that Joe Burrow can continue to get healthier and get things right. I will say, while things on the offensive side of the ball, they had to slop things out last night. It was Joe Mixon runs and quick passes to Jamar Chase. This defense got back to what we thought this defense could be. I mean, Lou Anarumo, with an extra day of preparation, swarmed the Rams offense and totally shut down all this Puka Nacua nonsense. Not nonsense. I like Puka, but let's be honest. He goes from getting 20 catches a game to 4. That's Lou Anarumo game planning for what you're doing to shred opposing defenses. That's one of their biggest assets. And as much as we Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are the spotlight of this team, let's not forget how much this defense has done to make the Bengals these Super Bowl contenders. So you do love to see that from Cincinnati. And then you just hope, like last year, they can, sort through some things offensively and get stuff right on that side of the ball. I think they can, but they are not through the woods yet, just because they, kind of barely beat the Rams on Monday Night Football. Love the whiteouts, by the way. I'm very pro just wear the whiteouts every time because it's sick. Then the Baltimore Ravens, injuries. I don't really care making the injury excuse when literally half of your team is out in this game, and they still went to overtime and had 4 chances to win this game late. I'm just not worried about the Ravens other than they've got to get healthy, and that's been an Achilles heel. Sorry, that's a sensitive subject right now in Baltimore, but literally has been an Achilles heel for the Baltimore Ravens. So they got to get healthy. I still thought Lamar was impressive in this game, and they, again, had literally 4 different opportunities. If one play goes differently in this game, the Ravens still managed to beat the Colts. So I'm not worried about them, but got to get healthy. Then we've got the Cleveland Browns. Look, forget the offense. They're working through some things, to say the least. Watson's playing the 19th best quarterback in the league. Amari Cooper's awesome. They're working through some things. I don't think they're ever going to be a great offense here, especially with Nick Chubb out. But forget all that. this defense, seriously, with a real defensive coordinator and the best defensive line in the NFL. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Eagles fans. I know you run like 11 deep. That's cool and all. But fuck trying to block the Cleveland Browns. No, pass. I'm sitting here on my lazy boy in my basement in Minnesota, trembling at the thought of all of these one-on-ones that Myles Garrett is getting open because you've got Zadarius Smith on the other side. You have interior pressure. Nope. This defense with linebackers and secondary players on the back end, absolutely terrifying. Definitely not a foolproof team, but they're a good football team in Cleveland, like it or not. And then we've got the Cowboys dropping down 3 spots and dropping down a tier. You know, that's much more about losing one of their best defensive players, Trayvon Diggs, for the year. But of course, how could it not also be factored in that they went and got slaughtered by a team that most of us felt like was the worst team in football, in the Arizona Cardinals. And I would say the worst roster in football in the Arizona Cardinals. And it's just, I'm not too worried. You know, I think Dak Prescott will have better weeks. I know this defense will have better weeks, but it does suck that creeping into the back of your mind, you can, any given week, get these flat Mike McCarthy-led performances. It was a staple in Green Bay where 2 or 3 times a year, the Packers would just come out completely flat and toothless. And we saw that this week for the Cowboys. And you're just terrified that come January, that's the type of Mike McCarthy-led football team you're going to get. So definitely some concerns creeping in this week for the Cowboys that just last week looked invincible. Then at number 5, the Buffalo Bills really have impressed me this year and how they've responded from that ugly Monday night opener. I just want to see them play a better football team before I jump them back up into the top tier. And lucky for us, they played the Dolphins this weekend. So the defense has looked much better. I think you can certainly say that with McDermott taking over the defense, they feel a little bit more inspired. I think they're manufacturing a pass rush much better than they have in years past. And Josh Allen's playing pretty much seamless football the last couple weeks. So they're going to have their mettle tested this weekend against the Miami Dolphins. And I'll tell you right now, you win that game, Bills fans, you're up into the top tier. But things have definitely been going well for Buffalo. But then we've got the creme de la creme, the Super Bowl favorites, starting with the Philadelphia Eagles, holding on to that number 4 spot. Offense, to me, still just a little bit off. Jalen Hurts really had to make some spectacular plays happen to get some big chunk plays in this game. And that run game has been the staple of the offense, with DeAndre Swift kind of bursting onto the scene. But I do still think they're missing Shane Steichen right now and trying to sort through what's going to work for this iteration of the Eagles offense. And defensively, they are dealing with some injuries on the back end, but they obviously played great defensively against the Bucs last night. So, you know, Super Bowl favorites for a reason. I still think they're not quite the powerhouse that they were at the end of last season. Not to say they can't get there, but just some chinks in the armor right now compared to last year's squad. But that 3 spot is going to go to the Miami Dolphins this week. I mean, they took this spot from the Eagles. You know, the Cowboys dropped down, but how can you not say the Dolphins are looking like one of the 3 best teams in football right now after what they did just dissecting the Denver Broncos this week? And, like, Mike McDaniel feels like he's a one-of-one type of coach. And I'm not saying he's the best head coach in the NFL, but I'm not saying that. I mean, what he's bringing to the table right now with motion and his ability to so consistently anticipate what coverage he's going to get and just weaponize the speed that this roster has in a way that he also has a quarterback that has incredible anticipation and just trust in the system. It's this perfect boom of talent and intelligence. It's it's really special to watch. I've thoroughly enjoyed this Dolphins offense, and this was without Jalen Waddle. I mean, it really is starting to feel every week like the Dolphins just might be the best team in football. And if they do this similar, like I'm not expecting 70 points, but if they shred the Bills defense again this week and they look good defensively against Josh Allen, I'm not going to rule out them taking that number 1 spot this week. I have just been overwhelmed by how good the Miami Dolphins look, but look, you still got 2 powerhouses ahead of them that had excellent games this week too. I mean, the Kansas City Chiefs just went and dismantled the Chicago Bears. Mahomes did his thing. This Chiefs defense actually might be the best. I think it's pretty clearly the best defense that they've put around Mahomes. I mean, Chris Jones is a nightmare. They've got guys at all 3 levels. Spags is underratedly one of the best defensive coaches in football. So, like, the Chiefs are a juggernaut in their own right. And then you got the Niners, who just from an overall talent perspective on both sides of the ball, it's absurd. It was a complete mismatch against the New York Giants. When you got Debo out there breaking like 14 tackles in a game or whatever it ended up being, Brandon Ayuk doesn't even play and you barely miss him. This Niners team is very well equipped to get the job done this year if they can stay healthy. So there are your Week 4 NFL Power Rankings. Let me know in the comments down below where I went right, where I went wrong. Please do hit that like button if you have not yet, and make sure you subscribe. I appreciate you guys for watching, and we'll see you for the next one. Peace out.